Rodrygo may have saved both his and Alonso's Madrid career. Arsenal v Liverpool produces few highlights but one major lowlight, and Balotelli finally has a new club. This is DMAC Daily. The unpredictability of football is just wild at times. Case in point, Rodrygo. Literally 1 month ago, the verdict was in. The Brazilian's Madrid career was in the gutter. He'd fallen off. Statistically, he broke a 123-year record as the forward with the most consecutive games without scoring a goal for the club. When I made a video talking about this stunning demise back in December, it wasn't received negatively either. Madrid fans, Brazil fans were all in agreement. But fast forward to early January 2026, and Rodrygo has just fired Real Madrid into the Supercopa final, scoring what turned out to be the decisive goal against bitter rivals Atletico Madrid. But this wasn't an isolated moment of individual brilliance, because this is now his 7th goal involvement in his last 5 outings for Los Blancos. What we're witnessing is a remarkable career revival, a rapid change in regards to his influence in the team, and more importantly, his standing under the heavily scrutinized manager Xabi Alonso. Remember, back at the beginning of the Alonso era, Rodrygo quickly found himself on the margins. The Club World Cup was clear for all to see. The Brazilian saw limited action across the tournament, a bold decision from Alonso given the winger's pedigree and past heroics with the club. Internally, it was framed as simply a tactical decision. Externally, however, it was interpreted very differently. To the world's view, Rodrygo suddenly appeared expendable. That perception only intensified throughout the summer transfer window. Gonzalo Garcia had now made his presence known within the first team, and Madrid had also splashed a further 45 million euros on Argentine wonderkid Franco Mastantuono. There was a growing consensus that a potential sale of Rodrygo could raise both significant funds for Madrid and simultaneously declutter their stacked front line. Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea were reportedly rumoured, but serious interest then came via Manchester City. However, a hypothetical move would only be considered upon the sale of Savinho, who was a key target of Spurs. That deal inevitably fizzled out though, so City didn't proceed with the high-profile Brazilian. As the 25-26 season got underway, Rodrygo's situation had only gotten worse, having started just 4 games heading into December. But it was around this same time that Madrid's performances had deteriorated and Alonso was under fire. The Spaniard, in a desperate fight to save his job, decided to restore Rodrygo back into the starting 11 in a high-stakes Champions League tie against none other than Manchester City. Madrid would suffer a defeat that day at the Bernabeu, but the biggest storyline of the evening was that Rodrygo would go on to score, and in a stunning display of unity, went over to his under-fire manager and proceeded to hug him before stating in a post-match interview that, quote, "We are with the manager." 3 days later, he scored the match winner against Alaves in what was reportedly a do-or-die fixture for Alonso. The following weekend, he provided both assists in a massive win over Sevilla. Rodrygo then kicked off the new year with another brace of assists against Real Betis, and in the Super Cup in Jeddah, scored the goal that sent Atletico packing and Madrid to the final. Alonso has finally fully embraced the Brazilian, which has turned out to be a mutually beneficial decision. Now, will Rodrygo remain a key first-team player under Alonso long-term? It's hard to say. As mentioned, narratives shift quickly in the beautiful game. But on a personal level, I think it's great to see that humility of Rodrygo prevail. A lot of Madrid's media frenzy has been hyper-focused on Alonso v Vini Jr. and the power dynamic at play there, but all the while, Rodrygo has probably suffered harsher treatment than Vini has under Alonso, yet instead of throwing his toys out the pram and causing a media circus, he simply kept his head down and chose solidarity when it mattered most. So I'm genuinely happy to see this rejuvenated version of Rodrygo come to life, an incredibly talented and likable player, one that even as a neutral, you want to see him succeed. It would be an incredible redemption if he went on to score the winner against Barcelona in the final. What a spectacle that's set to be. Just quickly on Madrid, and it was hardly a vintage performance today. Valverde's free kick was definitely out of this world, and Rodrygo was at the heart of everything they produced offensively, but in totality, this wasn't a great display. Defensively, they were all over the shop. Atletico will be ruining all the chances they missed. It could have been a very different outcome if they had their shooting boots on. The Vini v Simeone spat is probably a welcoming distraction, to be honest, because this Madrid team still has massive problems across the park. On a more positive note though, Mbappe is set to return for the final. That could be a game changer. Shifting gears to English football and talk about a snooze fest. Arsenal held it home to Liverpool in a scoreless draw. A match of very few highlights. Bradley hit the bar with a lob attempt, a couple half chances from Arsenal, but this contest would be marred late on with Bradley suffering a horrific injury. From what I saw, it looks very much like potential ACL territory. However, in the immediate aftermath, Martinelli drops the ball on him whilst he's on the floor in agony and then attempts to drag him off the pitch. Genuinely shameful behavior. He only received a yellow for this completely unnecessary aggression. Surely retrospective action is required here. Like, this is objectively violent conduct. I know Martinelli has since taken to social media to apologize for the incident, claiming he reached out to Bradley personally and was unaware of the severity of the situation. Now, I do fully believe him when he says he didn't know Bradley was actually injured. Time wasting, faking injuries is all too common in this sport. Surprisingly, Arne Slot came out saying this, recognizing the high stakes of play, and even vouched for Martinelli, but literally dropping the ball on a player in clear physical distress, using his knee to try and move him, and then shoving him, that is psychotic behavior. You can see him actually put force on the injured left leg of Bradley too. Ignorance to the severity of the injury is not a valid excuse here. I've seen online a lot of Arsenal fans feeling victimized by this outrage, weirdly enough, but spare me. If this was a Liverpool player doing this to an Arsenal player, the analysis would be fundamentally the same. Like, what are we doing here? Staying on the subject of Arsenal though, and David Ornstein is reporting that the Gunners are seriously interested in pursuing a deal for Mark Guehi this summer. The 25-year-old's contract with Crystal Palace is set to expire on June the 30th, and whilst we don't know his next destination, we do know that the Palace skipper has no intention of renewing his deal with the South London club. Remember, on deadline day last September, Guehi came extremely close to joining Liverpool. A $35 million deal was agreed, and the medical had even been completed in London before Palace suddenly pulled the plug on the deal at the last second. It remains to be seen if another bid from Liverpool will follow. Maybe this Bradley injury reassesses things, but in the meantime, it appears that Manchester City are also seriously interested in the centre-back this January. City have been hit with a centre-back injury crisis, so they've brought back youngster Max Alleyne, and according to Sami Mokbel of the BBC, a formal approach for Guehi is anticipated in the upcoming days. You've also got Florian Plettenberg of Sky Germany reporting that Bayern retain interest in the player if he remains at Palace beyond January. This is destined to become one of the biggest transfer battles in 2026. I'm slightly surprised about the Arsenal links considering the depth they already have in that centre-back department with Saliba, Gabriel, Mosquera. You've also got Hincapié, Calafiori, White, even Timber that can all operate as central defenders if need be. So I'd be shocked if Guehi ended up at the Emirates, but that would be some next level squad building from Arteta if they were to pull this deal off. Staying on the topic of transfer news, and Mario Balotelli is set to return to professional football in 2026, with the 35-year-old signing for UAE second-tier side Al Ittifaq on a 2.5-year deal. This marks the 13th club of the Italian's illustrious career. In saying that, he has been off the pitch for some time now. Having joined top-flight Italian club Genoa last campaign, he only managed 56 minutes of game time with the club and 2 yellow cards before leaving shortly after. Ever since, he's been linked with a move to MLS, Liga MX. There were even talks down under about potentially recruiting the controversial striker, but instead, he's opted for the Middle East. If recent history is anything to go by, I seriously doubt he'll see out the full 2.5-year deal, but you never know with the Italian icon. Staying on the topic of Italian football news, and AC Milan will be bitterly disappointed to have dropped 2 vital points at home to Genoa in what was an incredibly entertaining affair. There was so much drama today. Milan's own player Lorenzo Colombo, who is currently on loan at Genoa, opened the scoring. Then Gabi's header, which appeared to be goal-bound, was then turned in on the line by Pulisic, but as he handled the ball, it was disallowed. Milan appeared to be spared in the 92nd minute when Rafael Leao salvaged an equalizer, but there was more drama to come. In the 95th minute, Milan's Bartesaghi gave away a reckless penalty. Stanchu stepped up, but sent it into orbit. What a crazy game all round. The Rossoneri will still be disappointed as Inter now sit 3 points clear at the top. We also saw a Vardy party today at Cremonese, the 38-year-old setting up the first before slotting home the second, his 150th top-flight goal. Cagliari did eventually draw level in this match, but what a successful chapter this is turning out to be for the English legend abroad. And finally, PSG have picked up their third trophy of the campaign already. Ballon d'Or winner Ousmane Dembele opened the scoring in the Trophée des Champions before Greenwood, and then Pacho's own goal made it 2-1 to Marseille. But in simply wild scenes, the Ecuadorian would redeem himself, making a goal-preventing challenge in the 94th minute on Aubameyang, and in that same sequence of play, PSG went up the other end and Gonzalo Ramos equalized. Chevalier was then the hero via spot kicks, just like he was back in the Super Cup final, with 2 big saves to his name, as PSG converted all 4 of their penalties to lift the Trophée des Champions. Anyways, legends, that's all for this week's DMAC Daily. Thanks as always for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.